Hello, I'm Elaine, and I welcome you to ethBeats, Lessons in Graceful Living. Today, we are pleased to have with us Suhaimi Zainul-Abidin, who is CEO of Quantedge Capital, a successful hedge fund founded in Singapore. He's also a director of Quantedge Foundation. We will hear about Quantedge Capital and also the philosophy behind Quantedge Foundation a little later. Prior to him joining Quantedge in 2013, Suhaimi was a leading banking and finance lawyer. Again, more on this later. Suhaimi holds several board and equivalent positions at a number of Singapore government-related agencies and entities, including the National Environment Agency and the SkillsFuture Singapore Agency. He's passionate about leadership development, business strategy, social impact, governance, and risk management. One thing I will not forget is something Suhaimi had said in an earlier interview. And if I may take the liberty of paraphrasing it, Suhaimi said, "The whole point about making money is to mobilize capital in order to make real change. This is a long fight, and this is where we will devote our intellectual capital." So what struck me was the intentionality behind this. The energy and capital and intellectual capital being devoted to making change. Of course, energy also in building a robust investment portfolio, etc. But really, it's how intentional it is. This made me reflect on the sense of purpose for each of us and why we do what we do. But before exploring this, I wanted to know about Suhaimi as a person and what drives him. So I'll pose him a few questions.
Sure.
So Suhaimi, you started your career as a lawyer and you now find yourself as CEO of a hedge fund. How did that happen?
Yeah, it's true. It's when I look back, of course, I was a lawyer some time ago. It feels like a lifetime ago. And that kind of tells you never really know where you're going to end up. But 10 years ago, I was at Allen & Gladhill. I originally started there as a practice trainee in 2004, and then got called to, eventually became partner in the banking and finance practice about 2009, and stayed until 2013. So in that 10 years, I outlasted many of my peers already. And at that point in time, I probably felt I was going to be at A&G forever. It was a great place to be. It was kind of like where I grew up, and I was doing great work, right? Cutting edge work. I was really happy where I was. I enjoyed it tremendously. Undoubtedly grueling, right? Physically, mentally, it's tough, but it's where I grew up. It's where I cut my teeth and grew professionally. So I didn't think that I would ever leave, but sometime in 2013, I remember this conversation really vividly because one of my friends gave me a call. I was in camp. I was doing national service.
Okay.
He gave me a call and I said, "Hey, have you ever thought about joining a hedge fund?" Right. My answer was pretty straight, like, "Nope, not interested. I love what I do. I'm happy where I am." And that hedge fund was obviously Quantedge, which I had some familiarity with. I happened to be an investor in the fund a bit earlier.
Oh, okay.
And the guy who called me was a friend of mine, the founder of Quantedge, and I happened to have, be in school with him. Took a while, a couple of months for them to convince me to join Quantedge. It wasn't an easy decision. Being someone who thought that this was the career for me, being a lawyer. But what really excited me about that opportunity it wasn't about higher pay, certainly not that. It wasn't about better work-life balance. But what really excited me was the opportunity, I think, to grow together with a somewhat young firm, right? To build something together with a bunch of really talented individuals where you think the sky is the limit, and that was really exciting. Right, so I eventually moved in 2013 to join Quantedge, and initially it was to be general counsel, and then slowly sort of crept into more and more sort of areas of the firm, operations, risk management, investor relations, and eventually, exposure to those areas became responsibility over those areas, and eventually CEO. So that's how I got there. But it's 10 years since I've been at Quantedge.
And
So it's been a while.
do you miss the previous life as a lawyer?
Absolutely.
Ah,
Absolutely. I
okay.
do miss legal practice.
Which aspects?
Although I must qualify that by saying I'm probably looking into the past with somewhat rose-tinted glasses, right? Because as a lawyer, you tend to sort of complain a little bit about how tough life is. But looking back, actually, it's a great career. There's certainty in terms of the progress that you're going to make. There's assurance in the fact that if you really work hard, put your mind and soul into it, that you'll get rewarded for it, right? So that's a great career to have. But there are certain aspects that I like more than others, obviously. I mean, there's the baseline competencies, right? You need to be good at certain things. There's knowing the law, there's giving advice, there's documentation, negotiation. I like negotiation. I like bringing deals to a close, seeing clients celebrate. But the part that for me was most interesting about legal practice was actually the business side of it. Right? Okay. Strategizing how to expand your offering, your product offering, your suite of skills, pricing, market strategy, how to get more clients, how to build a team, how to be more profitable, which is often not sort of considered when you think about a legal career. But actually, the business of law is just like any other professional services business, right? It's a real business that you got to think about growth. You got to fight for your piece of the pie, and that's actually the part that I really like.
Okay, interesting. And what was the toughest part of the transition for you?
Well, I mentioned just now, I transitioned from being a lawyer in practice, external counsel, into an in-house sort of general counsel role. And looking at that by itself, it doesn't seem too difficult. But I think the first thing that people don't often realize is that it requires a bit of a mindset shift, right? Because as external counsel, you're giving legal advice. But once you're in an in-house role, you sort of have to apply a more intense business lens to the advice that you give. Because ultimately, you're contributing and contributing to and being part of a business decision, right? And in business, you have to take certain risks.
Yes.
Right. So that's the slight difference, I would say. And I think it takes a bit of time to get used to it, because I mean, I had that trouble too. Initially, I was like just giving advice, right? And then, as clients often ask, like, okay, so what does this mean for me? Except that when you're in-house, you've got to ask that question yourself. You want to be useful to people. You want to contribute towards making that decision. So that's a little bit different, right? So that was the initial shift. I don't think it was too difficult, but it requires some time. And then, as you get more and more involved in other parts of the firm, then it's completely different, right? Because you step out from legal and compliance and you do operations work, right? Yes. It's getting into the nuts and bolts of things. And then you have to realize, hey, I'm no longer the technical expert here. There are people who've been doing this for years and years. They're far better than you. You'll spend forever trying to learn what they're doing, and you'll never sort of catch up, right? So you apply sort of a different level of supervision and different kind of scope of trying to understand things, right? While you're trying to achieve efficiency, proficiency, and you're trying to help the firm as a whole, but you're not going to be there as the technical expert.
That's right. And therefore, you found yourself in a leadership position.
Absolutely.
And what would your style be?
That's a style of leadership. It's an interesting question. It's something I sort of study a lot as well. I would say today, I think one of the best ways to describe my model of leadership, or what I subscribe to, is called servant leadership. Right? So that essentially means that my goal is to empower people. I want to enable them to succeed. And this stems from the fact that, or the understanding that actually a lot of the people you work with, they have the ability, the capability to be far better than you in what they do. And your job as a leader is not to be the best, but to make people or help people become the best, right? So my idea of success is, even as a lawyer, right? If I'm general counsel and I've got a team of lawyers that I'm working with or guiding or supervising, my role is to make sure that each and every one of them will exceed me in my capacity as a lawyer, right? I want to guide them towards that. So I think that's the way that I think about it in all aspects of leadership, right? Whatever firm I'm in, outside of Quantedge, whatever it is, I want to help people do far better work than I ever could. And to me, that's success as a leader.
Okay. And was there anything in your time with Quantedge which shaped this leadership style?
Yes, in fact, I would say yes, not just with respect to my time at Quantedge, but in all the various sort of brushes of experience that I've had in leadership positions, right? And it's quite a journey, because I first started sort of being considered a leader in national service, right? As a young second lieutenant, and then became a captain. And then, of course, in Allen and Gladhill, sort of as junior partner, and then eventually partner, and of course in all the other sort of board positions as well, right? So it's a learning journey. And I would say, leadership styles or leadership models, they're not static, right? It depends on your experience as a leader. It depends on the context, the people you work with. So I would say in the past, maybe when I was a lot younger, right, and with sort of limited experience in leadership, especially in the army, and we are leading pretty young people, and everything's sort of pretty hands-on. You would often hear phrases like leading from the front, being the first, being the best. And you want to do things and show people how it's done. And slightly negative sort of side to it would be people saying, if you want things done right, do it yourself. I mean, we've all heard that before. So maybe in the past I would have had some of that kind of thinking. Really, I mean, on the one hand, sort of leading from the front, but on the other hand, sort of really feeling that I can be the best amongst the group. And that's the way to show leadership. But I've moved far away from that, right? And that comes with a bit of maturity, and also from the fact that you realize, wow, if you give people a chance, they can really, really impress you. They can do amazing things. And that requires a different style of leadership. Right?
It also requires a lot of humility and confidence, actually.
I guess so. And that comes with time and experience.
Yeah. What do you think are the challenges that leaders today grapple with? There are various styles, but generally, what are the challenges you see?
Well, there are tons of challenges. I don't think there's one single one that I would consider the toughest, but maybe what I can say about leadership in general, and this applies across the board, across many, many sort of industries and sectors, and maybe I'll draw a parallel to what we're doing at Quantedge. So at Quantedge Capital, right, we're in the business of investing in risk management. We're in the financial markets. We're looking to profit from taking positions in the financial markets, right, which obviously is very unpredictable in the short term. And in addition to that, we're trying to do that systematically, right, meaning that we want to put in a process, a model, a system that will last a long time, right? Anyone can take a position in the market and make money from it, right? Sometimes you're lucky, sometimes you're good. But to do that long-term, systematically, very disciplined way, that's not easy, right? Because it requires two things. It requires patience and it requires discipline. And the challenge for most leaders comes from the fact that most people are not patient. The many people who judge you, who look at your results, they want instant results. They want the short term. They want the here and now. And that adds a lot of pressure to leaders, right, to perform. And the problem with that is typically that it causes you to waver from long-term strategy, long-term objectives, right? And I think that's the biggest challenge. This urgency to get things done immediately, the lack of patience, and hence, as a result of that, you're less disciplined. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges. I think it's difficult, especially in this day and age, where people just want things immediately, the instant gratification. So that's difficult.
Quantedge is well known for retaining its people. What's the secret?
Okay, I suppose we have had that reputation. It's a nice sort of reputation to have. So we've done all right. We've been around for, I think, 16, 17 years now. Most years, nobody ever leaves. We hire people, they stay on, and we're happy with that. Look, the idea here is to try and create an environment where we get the best out of people. So that's number one. And to do that, we believe in creating talent density. That means that we want A graders in our company. We want everybody to be really good at their job, right? Because we believe that, if you create an environment where everybody is a high performer, then that sort of that energy, that enthusiasm, that high level of productivity sort of feeds off each other, and it just gets better and better. So that's number one, right? If you create that kind of expectation and culture, then generally it's just there is a lot of positivity around it. I would say that in addition to that, there is that we have a philosophy of, again, empowering people. We want people to achieve their maximum potential. So in a simple way, we want to get out of their way and let them do their stuff, right? We want to give them as much freedom and leeway as possible. Of course, they need guidelines, they need, strategic direction, all that. So we're here to guide them, but we want them to achieve their potential, right? And in that sense, I think it all sort of fits together. You need that talent density, you need the right kind of leadership. In addition to that, I would say, look, a lot of companies sort of think about this. And a lot has been said about what many of the tech companies are doing, right? In terms of perks and benefits and lifestyle. You've got, I don't know what they have now. It used to be fancy pantries, ping pong table, games room. Now they've got, I don't know, in-house baristas doing their coffee and stuff. I just went to an office yesterday where they were proudly showcasing their sort of coffee area. And all that helps, right? But in my view, if you ask me personally, that helps attract talent. It gets people to sign on the dotted line. They get excited about it. But it's not what makes people stay. They'll join, but they'll stay for other reasons. And to me, what makes people stay is the challenge, the feeling that they're doing great work, of course, the appreciation, the validation that, they are contributing to the cause. And of course, the cause itself matters as well. And then it's about the respect that you get from your colleagues, whether they're good people, right? So it all sort of fits together, right? If you have good people, they're all fully formed adults, all respectful of each other, and then you have that mission and common purpose that people can be proud of, then that's why people stay.
Oh, yeah. Okay. There's one more question that I'd like to ask. What are some of the tough choices that you've had to make as a leader?
Some of the toughest choices that I've had to make have often been have people related. Right, when it comes to tough business decisions, you can always sort of rationalize things logically and then be quite unemotional about it. But when it comes to people, it's always, it's tough.
It's a lot harder.
And maybe it's just me, I don't know. Maybe at some point in my career, I'll be more unemotional about it. I don't know whether
let's hope not.
Yeah, it's probably not a good thing.
Yeah.
But some leaders are like that. There are schools of thought where, in order to get talent density, you need to be quite ruthless. Like, who's not performing, get them out. I don't subscribe to that. But there's still, it still means that you make tough decisions, not just in terms of hiring, but who to promote, so on and so forth, right? When you ask somebody to do something which, maybe they weren't expecting, for the good of the team, those are tough choices, right? Because they're not just a digit within the firm, right? It's a real person. They've got strengths and weaknesses. They've got aspirations. They've got family. They've got obligations. And sometimes you really feel for them.
Yes.
Right? You want to do the best for them. And those tend to be, to me, the toughest choices, because I go back and think about it like, oh gosh, how would I have reacted if I was in that position, right? Yeah. So that to me still remains the toughest, some of the toughest decisions I've had to make have often been people related.
Oh, thank you for that. Well, to wrap up, would you give us one or two takeaways?
Maybe I'll talk a bit about something a bit different from what we've spoken about so far. I just wanted to share something. I just came back from a trip to London.
Yes.
Where I was quite privileged to spend a couple of days in London Business School. So a couple of friends, we discussed all sorts of things. So we do case studies, learning about how other businesses react to many different challenges. One of the interesting sessions was actually about resilience. Okay, so when I first entered into the class, I was thinking, like, oh, not resilience again. It's been talked to death, right? Resilience. But the conversations that came out were quite interesting, and we sort of came to this conclusion that most people will be able to define resilience. Right? They talk about the ability to withstand pressure, the ability to bounce back from adversity. Okay, fine. But what does that really mean? How do you build resilience? And I thought maybe I would share this because I find it really intriguing. So we sort of boiled it down to two cornerstones, two things that are really, really important. And the first one is actually gratitude. So whenever you come to that point where you sort of lose hope because things get really tough, things don't go according to plan, and you feel, oh gosh, I'm not gonna be able to rebound, I'm not gonna make it. Plans have failed. I think the first thing you need to do is to be grateful for everything else that you have,
Right.
because no matter what, it could be worse, and you actually have a lot of things going for you. And once you have that, then that's the base, that's the platform, because you're not going to sink below that because there are good things going for you. So gratitude is the first one. And then we came to the second sort of conclusion after some debate, right? The second thing that's really going to propel you up is this desire of, I wouldn't say desire, it's more a belief that you can do better, which is a bit distinct from feeling like, especially when you're a bit disappointed, people tend to feel it's not really fair, I deserve better. And that's a negative thought. But once you establish, look, I have a lot to be grateful for, and I want to do better, and I can do better, that then establishes sort of the next step up, because you then regain control over yourself to know that actually I can get out of this. It is within my control, and I want to do it. So I thought just to share this, because I thought in combination, the gratitude together with this desire to do better, which puts control back in your hands, those two things in combination will actually result in resilience, which I think people so often sort of think about it, right? They say it's necessary. We don't know whether there's enough resilience within the company, the organization, the country, the youth. And I think if you boil it down to those two things, everyone can have a resilient mindset.
I think what you've mentioned are basically the tools that
Exactly.
within us
Yeah.
we can harness to keep going despite
Indeed.
what's happening. Right. Okay. Suhaimi, thank you so much. Thank you for being with us today.
You're most welcome.
ethBeats is a podcast of the ethB platform supported by RHT Grace Institute, a non-profit organization. You may find out more information in the notes to this podcast.